Thank God I struggled like a junkyard dog as a kid. I lay in bed for 2 years almost every night wishing I was dead. That's the reason I became a world champion. Adversity is the greatest medicine, the greatest tonic that the human being can have. And yet today the problem is we're living.
One of my goals on this channel is also actually understand, the lives of Indians, coloreds, whites. I know a lot has been spoken about the black majority, but I really want to understand the lives of these other people and how they grew up in South Africa and growing up in South Africa from the apartheid regime all the way to independence. And Gary Player has actually been really inspirational. The more I listen to his life, the more I listen to how he actually conducts himself as a South African, it actually really inspires me to really understand how life, for white South Africans, Indian South Africans, colored South Africans actually feels on a day-to-day. And Gary Player here is actually arguing that the hardship he felt in South Africa growing up, he's the multimillionaire today, really wealthy, but he actually had a really difficult childhood as well, really hardship, the kind of hardship we still see among the majority of black, townships today, and how he rose out of those throws into where he is today is actually something that really inspires me to really learn, and hopefully some parts of the black majority also can actually pick a few thoughts here and there from his life. Let's quickly listen to Gary Player as he actually explains how hardship made him a champion.
Around the world, and without being repetitive, have traveled more than any human being ever. And I've gone into India and China, Singapore and America, around the world, searching for longevity because I love life. I love people. I love traveling. I love my work. And so I'm trying to reach 100. And so the conclusion was meeting all these gerontologists, people who work on longer lifespan. They gave me 10 things to work on. And one of the most important things when I wake up is an ice bath. I get into this ice bath, which takes away inflammation and rejuvenates the cells. Number 2, I sleep 9 hours a night minimum, unless I've got an appointment that's early the next morning. That's the biggest and the most important thing, and South Africans should adhere to this, is undereat 2 meals a day. These big dinners, this man in India said, Gary, you don't put petrol in your car when you park it in the garage at night. And there's a great message in that. But people have their big dinners at night and go to bed with a full stomach. Of course, they put on weight. And once you put on weight, you are starting to die. No question, unless you're a freak. Your heart has to pump more. It affects your whole system. Your body cannot work in the morning to the extent it should do. So undereating is the most important thing. I laugh all day too. Laughter is the best medicine. Look at the discrepancy between laughing and feeling miserable. I mean, it's enormous. I read a lot. I have friends. I think that's important. I do at least 10 to 11 things every single day. And to live to 100, you got to work at it. But everybody thinks it's luck. Luck is the residue of design. So I work at it very, very hard and continue to do it with great enthusiasm. And I love to exercise. I go to the gym. I still push 300 pounds with my legs. I run the treadmill at max. I do hundreds and hundreds of sit-ups, and I lift a lot of heavy weights. So, it's such a great feeling to get to nearly 90 and have such vitality, such energy. It's such a thrill because most people my age are dead.
Do you go to gym every day?
I don't go to the gym every day, but I practice. If I'm not in the gym, I'm hitting golf balls. And when you take a driver and you take a full swing in your body, it's a massive exercise, and then walking on the golf course. So basically, I'm exercising every day, you could say, yeah.
There's another element to
your... It's what you eat is the most important thing. See, I don't eat. I'm not telling people they mustn't eat this, but I don't eat touch bacon. I'm trying to eat as little bread as possible. There's not much food value in bread. I don't drink milk. I might have a little in 1 cup of coffee a day, never more than 1. So I drink a lot of water. I take a lot of very important vitamins. So, you've got to learn. You've got to study and learn what keeps you alive and what keeps you going. Because when you get sick, there's nothing worse. To live in pain is a terrible thing.
There's another element to your formula which you talk about regularly, and that is having love in your heart. You speak about your wife, Vivian, who you were with for 72 years. And Gary, that's been formulative in your success. You mention her in so many different platforms.
Well, for the people that never knew this, I was 14 exercising in a very poor neighborhood. We were very poor. And there was a wall between me and my neighbor. And my brother was standing there. He's come and look at this little chick here next door. So I get on the rock and I look over and I see this girl. I say, good morning. What's your name? She says, Vivian. I said, mine's Gary. She says, do you play golf? I said, I'm starting. She says, I'll pick you up on Saturday with my father because we go to a golf club every Saturday. I got off the wall. I spent 45 seconds talking to her. And I said to my brother, I'm going to marry that girl. Now, he said, are you crazy? Well, I did. And what a woman I had. And, if you get a good wife, it makes a big difference. And unfortunately, we're living in a terrible world at the moment where all countries, nuclear weapons, trying to develop nuclear weapons to destroy each other, to be dominant in the world. If we could put all that amount of money into the human being and the betterment of the human being, everybody would have a job. Everybody would have a home. They'd have a decent salary to come in every week. You'd avoid you'd completely disintegrate poverty. But a weapon of nuclear destruction makes a big noise. But love is silent and makes a bigger noise. And if you can have love in your heart, if you've got love in your heart, it's amazing what it does. Things that I thought were serious when I was a young man, I realize now they weren't serious at all. And never to feel sorry for yourself. Thank God I struggled like a junkyard dog as a kid. I lay in bed for 2 years almost every night wishing I was dead. That's the reason I became a world champion. Adversity is the greatest medicine, the greatest tonic that the human being can have. And yet today the problem is we're living in such a soft nature, not the entire population, but a lot of the people, and it's doing them harm. When you let your children have new shoes, sleep in white sheets, 3 meals a day, anything they want, pocket money, this, that, this, and that. When you spoil them, you're doing them great harm. Now you've got to give them love, and you've got to give them discipline, and you've got to obviously do things for them because you love them. But when you go overboard and spoil them, it's going to come back and haunt you one day.
Gary, for those that don't know your story, when you say you lay in bed for 2 years and wished you were dead, if I understand it, that was at the time you were around 9 years old. You lost your mother. Your father was working on a gold mine. And it's that adversity that you often point to as what drove you to be a champion, that gave you that mentality of never giving up.
Very much so. My mother died when I was 9, and I adored my mother. My father worked in the gold mine, 8,000 feet underground. My brother went to war, can you believe it, left high school, St. John's College, at 17 years of age. When I look at my grandchildren, I say they're 17, and that's the age he went to war. My sister was at boarding school. Thank goodness I went to King Edward VII school. Let me tell you, dear listeners, that South Africa, without a question of a doubt, have the greatest high schools on the planet. If you're fortunate enough to be able to afford to send your child, your daughter, or your son to a high school in America, we're developing unique people with manners, great education, and are thriving to do well and are contributing to society. So, it's an all, education is, I study genetics every day. I read. Winston Churchill was my all-time hero. I read about his episodes. If you can read, but today children don't read. They've got a cell phone and they never read. And so parents have got to say, fine, you can have a cell phone, but you can't just have a cell phone all the time. You've got to read. Education is the light, and the world is so competitive that you better learn to read.